Each Bulgarian who has been paying taxes has, from 2020 until now, contributed 200 BGN for the deepening of the Varna-West port. With a price tag of 435 million BGN, this is the biggest port infrastructure investment for nearly half a century. However, an official account of how the money has been spent and where it has ended up is not available to this very day. It is also unclear why this infrastructure gem has cost 3 times the market value. In other words, why did the state take from each taxpayer 130 BGN more than needed? This is just one among hundreds of examples of a recurring scheme. Public funds drained from state-owned companies and directed into private hands. The vicious circle goes on and on for years, with the money always ending up in the same deep pockets. Swamp Stories from Varna Lake, Part 1. On paper, the deepening of the channel leading through Varna Lake and Beloslav Lake sounds like a good idea. Adding 2 additional meters of depth would allow large post-Panamax vessels to enter the channel. This would help Bulgarian companies reduce the costs for transporting raw materials and goods, giving them an edge in the global markets. In October 2019, the government of Boyko Borisov provided 220 million BGN to the state-owned Bulgarian Ports Infrastructure Company for the deepening of Channels 1 and 2 of Varna Port. The plan of exactly how this would happen is still missing today. What was not missing, though, was the enthusiasm to spend the allocated sum. Thus, State-Owned Transport Construction and Restoration (TCR) was selected as the contractor on the basis of in-house procurement. How did this become possible? Investigative journalist Spas Spasov, who first looked into the scheme, provides the answers. Like all major stories, this one too started off with an innocuous announcement that the Ports Infrastructure Company had awarded TCR a contract for deepening the navigation channels of Varna Port. As the sum involved was quite large, I decided to check why no public procurement tender had been carried out. This is where the story got interesting. TCR is a public company with more than 130 years of operation. In all this time, it has built hundreds of kilometers of railways and not a single navigation channel. Since it lacked the necessary equipment and expertise, TCR hired a subcontractor, the consortium S-Build, comprised by 2 private companies. The contract awarded to S-Build was worth 393 million BGN, twice as much as the initially allocated sum. Another 43 million BGN was set aside for other subcontractors used by TCR on the project. The chain did not stop there. In the spring of 2020, instead of the company's equipment and personnel carrying out the works, mysterious Russian dredgers, owned by Kaliningrad-based Gidrostroy, appeared in the Varna Lake. The dredgers had actually been spotted in the port before the above-mentioned contract with S-Build was even signed. In fact, the dredger had already been at Varna Port a month before its work permit was issued. How were more than 400 million BGN siphoned off in this chain of blatant violations of the law? To find out, let us start over from the beginning. In-house procurement is a procedure which is permitted by law only when both the awarding party and the contractor are public organizations or companies. The second necessary condition is that the awarded contractor can implement the project independently without relying on subcontractors. In this case, we have a violation of the law because the Bulgarian Ports Infrastructure Company signed a contract with TCR, a company which, as already mentioned, had no capacity to carry out dredging activities. The contract between TCR and S-Build was signed on the basis of internal rules, complied by TCR. In accordance with these rules, TCR had a list of potential providers of goods and services. TCR chose S-Build on the basis of this list. According to the interim transport minister, the public company had relied on internal rules to select service providers from a list, the mechanism through which S-Build was chosen. This represents a gross violation of the law because it is illegal to rely on in-house procurement when subcontracting. The next blatant violation is the decision to choose a service provider based on internal rules and from a pre-existing list. Furthermore, the project's building permits and protocols were signed by a person who was not involved in the building works, actions which the Directorate for National Construction Control considers fraudulent as per the Criminal Code. The violation is even more blatant due to the fact that the service provider was a third company, Russia's Gidrostroy. Gidrostroy were an authorized representative of one of the companies in S-Build. This was the reason why the Russian company was most likely selected to carry out the said activity. This subcontracting chain allowed for the contractor to change 3 times without any oversight and with complete lack of transparency. Besides being a violation, this is also a clear indicator for possible corruption worth millions. The details of the subcontracting scheme were kept secret on the pretext of commercial secrecy. Spas Spasov had to petition the court in order to receive details about the contracts. The court case went on for about a year, until finally, in August last year, the Ports Infrastructure Company gave me access to its contract with TCR. It was organized in a very interesting manner. I was allowed to review the contract at their premises. On each of the days that I visited, I was searched for hidden camera equipment. My glasses and my watch were checked for any recording devices. The checks aimed to ensure nothing left the room where the documents were being kept. What was the actual market value of the channel deepening? Several years ago, the Bulgarian Ports Infrastructure Company awarded a similar dredging job at rates from 10 BGN to 20 BGN per cubic meter. Even if the European average of 23 BGN per cubic meter is used to calculate the cost, the dredging of 7 million cubic meters would be worth 161 million BGN. Compare this to the 362 million BGN in the contract between TCR and S-Build. In addition, determining the amount of the dredged material is difficult because of the nature of the work, but also because the dredged silt is brought to a waste site within the lake from where it flows back into the water. Along the chain from the public coffers to the Russian company, at least 201 million BGN, more than the actual market value, were paid. This is equal to 2.5 times more than the reference price for similar projects. Furthermore, S-Build was tasked with designing and building the project, the worst possible option. With regards to public expenditure, design and build contracts are considered to be a bad practice. Since one company builds a project it has engineered, receiving a joint payment for both services. This could create incentives to choose engineering solutions which are not optimal and do not promote the effective use of public financial resources. Based on the above facts, the Anti-Corruption Fund Foundation, ACF, has alerted several public bodies. the Bulgarian Parliament with a request that the Bulgarian National Audit Office carries out a comprehensive financial audit of the project. The Minister of the Interior with a request to investigate the above violations and possible crimes. The Ministry of the Interior has already filed the results of its investigation with the public prosecution. ACF awaits timely responses from all relevant institutions. Unfortunately, there is more to this case. 2 sentences from the 8th of May 2020 answer the question, exactly how much dredging is needed in the Varna Lake. They belong to the then director of the Ports Infrastructure Company, Angel Zaburtov. We are currently designing the project. I expect that this phase will be complete by the end of the year, so we could go on with the dredging and construction work. This brings up the question, if the design phase was still ongoing by mid-2020, why had the government allocated a substantial budget 7 months before the project was even discussed? How is it possible to allocate funds for a project that is not designed yet? The cost of deepening the channels is one part of the problem. It is also important to clarify how viable the project is. The depth of the navigation channels going under the Asparuchov Bridge will not make a difference in promoting more traffic, since the large vessels will not be able to pass under the bridge. All this makes the situation around the deepening of the navigation channels even more questionable. Add to this the fact that the biggest dredging effort seems to be concentrated around a site other than Varna-West, the main state-owned port, and the question arises, if large vessels do manage to enter the channels, who exactly benefits from the project?